Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Vitamin C's with me, your boy, Adam Taylor. As usual, I'm joined by my homie, my compadre, my co host in crime, Mr. Tim Sheils. What's popping, Tim?
Not much, just taking in a nice Sunday, especially in that after wind glow.
Before we get into anything, and we'll talk about this Sunday in a hot minute, I just want to encourage everybody to subscribe, like, and comment on the show, especially the subscriptions. We're sitting at 871 at the moment. It's like 129 away from being able to monetize. That was quick math, so I might have missed out by 10. But, you know, the quicker we can get there, the better. As I said on the previous episode, like we've just joined up with the CLNS Media Network. I've stopped doing the other Celtics podcast that I was doing. So if we can monetize this quickly, I would be grateful. We're going to be bringing you way more content than what we used to be. And once we're monetized, we can start doing things like we can put more effort into live streaming and just being more present for everybody here. As if anyone's been commenting on the recent episodes, you'll notice I'm making more of an effort to get back to you all there too. So hopefully we can get things moving in the right direction. Hit that subscribe button, that like button, leave a nice little comment. We'll be sure to get back to you. Greatly, greatly appreciated. So the topic of today, and we're going to be, this is how we're kind of going to structure the shows from now on. We're just going to have one set talking point that we're going to try and do. I'm not going to say a huge deep dive, but we're going to try and peel off multiple layers and figure out where we stand on it. So today's topic is Jayson Tatum playing at MVP level. Now, last two games, Jayson Tatum has been on fire. Against the Knicks, he kind of let the game come to him, but picked it up down the stretch. The most important thing is, and he set a career high in this against Chicago, is Tatum's all of a sudden getting to the line whenever he wants, right? Like this has always been kind of a knock on his offense. Is like, hey, Tatum needs to get to the line more. Like he's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, he's taking guys off the dribble. He's added that floater to his game. So now defenses need to pick him up a little bit higher on that drive because you can't just bank on him going straight to the rim. So you need to contest that drive a little bit higher up. And now he's getting to the line a bunch more. That to me was kind of like the final evolution, right? I know some people are like, hey, he needs more of a post game. Well, not really, maybe, but I'm just like, we live in a 5 out pace and space era of basketball. Post game's nice, but it's not a necessity to be an MVP. So the question I have for you, Tim, over the last two games, what you've seen, is Jayson Tatum an MVP caliber player?
I mean, he has to be top five, right? With the way that the Celtics have been playing, considering you look at the three losses that the team has had, two of the three were in overtime to a very, very good Cavaliers team. That one Chicago game, of course, we've talked about a lot, but just letting go of the rope, especially with the second unit. But overall, I think everything that I've seen from Jason Tatum, this seems to be a more poised player. I think we've seen him develop over the years, and now we're starting to really see him piece everything together bit by bit. His finishing around the glass has been fantastic. He's hitting some crazy layups where he's just spinning it way high up off the glass. You're seeing him use his floater a little bit. He's being way more aggressive. He's not shying away from contact. He still does a little bit of complaining to the referees, but overall, like that's gotten a lot better. He's started to reel that in a lot more, and he's not letting that kind of thing bother him. And on a game to game basis, he's kind of changing his game to whatever he's feeling. So, I mean, against the last night, they had the Knicks, and that was a franchise high 27, 3-pointers for the Celtics. And Tatum had six of them. He was 6 of 13 from deep, 4 for 4 from free throw line. So, not as much at the free throw line, but that 3-pointer was there. And then you look at the game before that, where they went against the Bulls, and the team was getting to the line like nothing, and he was the main reason. He had a career high, 20 free throw attempts? So, on a game by game basis, he's letting the game come to him and decide, how am I going to approach this offensively? And he looks fantastic. Like, I don't know how else to put it other than he's passing the statistical test, he's passing the eye test. I don't know what else they want from him other than if he's having these bad shooting games where he's, shooting less than he should be. I mean, other than that, I think he's playing great. And I think right now, based on where the Celtics are in the league and all of these other top talents, he's got to be in the top five. Like, I just don't think that there are a lot of other players that are bringing the same amount of impact to their teams as Tatum.
Okay, so let's start with the offense, right? So we're going to break this down into three different areas. We're going to go offense, defense, and playmaking. So we'll go through all three, and I'm not going to compare him to other guys. Quite frankly, I'm a big believer in if you cover a team, like I cover the Celtics, that's my job, right? So I watch every other team in the league quite regularly, but I don't watch them enough to where I can be like, hey, Luca's going left so many percent. I'm not that, because my focus is on what Tatum's doing, what Brown's doing. So I'm not going to focus on what their comparisons are like, because simply I don't know the schemes. I don't know what the coaches are asking. I get them. I can watch it and be like, hey, this team runs a bunch of cross actions, or this one runs a bunch of flex action, or whatever it may be. But it's just a lot harder to kind of like do a comparative study that way, because I need to have watched as many Luca games as Tatum games and blah blah blah. So I'm just focusing. I just want us to focus on what Tatum's doing, and then look at the improvements from last season where he was all NBA, and be like, right, well, that next step was always going to be MVP. So what are the improvements he's made? I think that's the fairest way we can do it without pretending that we know more than what we actually do. Uh, and I'm not saying other people do that. I'm just saying that I try and avoid it. So we're going to start with the offense. I think the first thing that we need to recognize is, one, we're talking about smaller sample sizes than previous seasons, because, hey, we're only a few games in. We're 9 games into the season. You know what I'm saying? Like, the sample sizes are smaller. But the most notable thing for me right now is Tatum shooting 80% at the rim. 80, 8-0. According to Cleaning the Glass, he's finishing 80% of his looks around the rim. It puts him in the 91st percentile amongst wings in the league. That means, he's in that same category as Giannis and KD and those type of guys that are just cash. And when we're saying 80%, that is 39 finished, like 39 drops on 49 shots. That to me is the biggest jump. Just for reference, last season, Tatum shot 68% from the rim. The season before, 68% again. And those are the three like main ones for me, like the last 3 years of where we've seen that kind of jump. But this year it just seems to be at another level, because that float is there, because teams are picking him up a bit higher. He's improved his dribble. He's Euro stepping more intelligently. Sometimes he's just putting his shoulder down, barreling into guys' chests, finishing with both hands. We've seen the up and unders. We've seen kind of like he'll back guys down in the post, face up, shot fake, go left with his left hand, drive to the rim. But he's getting 80% of his looks there. And that's just a huge jump in efficiency. I don't know if it's going to be sustainable, but right now, for me, that's where the biggest jump in offensive threat has come from on Tatum, both as a guy that can rip through from the perimeter and a guy that can operate from the block, or by beating guys off the dribble. It's just an all-round improvement in terms of rim pressure.
Yeah, and I guess another thing that I would probably wonder, and I know we'll get to it, but I'm wondering how that free throw frequency has gone up. I mean, the big thing for Tatum is he usually struggles at the beginning of the season in terms of trying to get going offensively. But I don't know if it's because the Celtics are coming off of a finals appearance, or he's just putting in a lot of work with Drew Hanlon and they're targeting those clear weak spots that he wanted to improve on in his game. It's made him a more well rounded player, but he's come out of the gates swinging so far. This is the best I've seen him start a season in a long time.
So for shooting foul frequency,
Mhm.
Tatum's being fouled on 14.6% of his shot attempts. So 15 out of every 100 shots, Tatum's being fouled on. That's giving him an and one percentage where he actually makes, and then his and one percentage, how often he makes the shot and then gets to the line, 20%. So a fifth, one in every 5 shooting fouls, Tatum's pulling in an and one opportunity. So he's not only pressuring the rim, he's putting defenses in a bind. He's like, hey, you're going to foul me 15 times out of 100. That's kind of the trajectory he's on after 9 games. He's like, hey, every 100 shots, I'm going to get fouled 15 times. And out of those 15 times, 3 of them are going to be and one opportunities. That's the way the stats are kind of shaping up after 9 games. Now that's fantastic. When you look at his like free throw shooting rate for the season, I mean, like you said, he went 17 or 20 against the Bulls. On the season, he's kind of, what is he sitting at? He's sitting at 90% conversion rate from the line at the free throw line. So hey, 15 shots out of 100, I'm going to the free throw line. I'm shooting 90% from there. Do you get what I'm saying? A potential 30 points. If 15 shots, a potential 30 at a minimum. That's your lowest, because we're not counting him being fouled on the perimeter when shooting.
Yeah.
And I'm shooting 90%. Like, dude, how do you contain me? Do you know what I'm saying? And this is just
Yeah.
in terms of scoring offense. When we can look at his shot charts as well. If you want to look at like what he's doing from deep, what he's doing around places. At the moment, his frequency is coming in. We'll go to his accuracy. It's more important. Shooting 38% from free, 45% from the corner, 37% from non-corner.
Mhm.
Now, those corner threes, he's only took 11, but he's 5 of 11 from the corners. And non-corner threes, which is anywhere else on the damn perimeter, 26 of 70. Like Tatum is scoring everywhere. He's drawing fouls everywhere. And defenses just don't know what to do right now. And obviously, we can talk about his playmaking in a moment, as that's been another huge leap. But how do you contain a guy that's going to just be able to get to the rim at will, be able to pull back, step up? We saw that one fadeaway he had against the Knicks as well. He kind of just literally post up, step back, that Kobe fadeaway that we used to see from him. But it was so fluid. The shooting mechanics were there. I did. I don't understand how people are meant to slow this guy down at this point. He's kind of transcended what a defense can throw at him in terms of being able to just get to your spots and get your shot off.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how this also changes the rest of the team around him. And that's where like that factors into that whole MVP conversation, because the amount of impact he's having on the Celtics offense, which by the way, as it currently stands right now, the Celtics are the highest scoring offense in the league by like zero point 0.1 points, up there with the Grizzlies. The fact that they are this high offensively ranked and Tatum is also having one of the best offensive starts of his career, that means something. The gravity of him on the offensive end, what that's doing to opposing defenses, and what it means for the teammates around him, it just it speaks volumes to how he's come far.
Because then what do you do? How do you defend a guy like this? How do you? Okay, so you have to send two at Tatum, right? So you send two at Tatum. You can't do that this year. You send two at Tatum. You've got Derek White that's all of a sudden shooting like Ray Allen. Obviously, I'm joking when I say that to an extent. You've got Jaylen Brown, Al Horford's hitting threes. Malcolm Brogdon could be on the floor. Sam Hauser could be on the floor. Smart can hit threes. He can also get downhill and attack. Everyone can draw two and kick. Like you can't afford to send two bodies at Tatum long. You'll get guys stunting or digging, which is where you kind of see guys jump into a lane and that's trying to force you to pick the ball up. You can do that. You can blitz the pick and roll and then, figure out who's going to veer back onto their man. But overall, you're not blitzing Tatum very often because there's too many other weapons around him. That's why his effective field goal percentage is 58.8% this season. That's the 75th percentile because his looks are a little bit more open than what we've seen simply because Boston just has too many weapons. It's kind of like why teams like, Steph Curry will punish guys all day long for doubles because on the other side of the floor, there's a Klay Thompson or there's a Draymond Green setting a rip screen for somebody or a wedge screen for somebody to get some post area. And it's just really difficult to make that decision. So that's been the first part of Tatum's jump, in my opinion, is the offense. Obviously, the defense has been a completely revamped thing as well. The Celtics as a team are struggling defensively. They've shown improvements the last 2-3 games. I think Luke Cornett's addition to that defense has allowed them to be far more switchable. One of the biggest things for me, I want to get your thoughts on this. It's probably the only non-Tatum thing we'll say in this episode. One of the biggest adjustments that Missoula's made is playing a guard, preferably Marcus Smart, but he has put Derek White there too, guarding a center, because that removes the ability, like it removes the switching issues, right? Like, hey, we've already got a guard on your big man. So when we switch out, we're switching out into size. And it's kind of really allowed Boston to be more fluid, moving back towards that switchy defense. And I think that's helped Tatum as well. And then you get obviously Tatum's ability as a wing stopper, Tatum's ability as playing the passing lanes. I think he's really underrated as somebody that can shut down passing lanes and pilfer them. And then his ability to protect the rim. You saw him blocking shots yesterday against the Knicks.
I mean, I think it's interesting that they started to get back to switching a little bit defensively because I think it's something that, at least to start the season, when you had Joe Mazzulla first coming into the fold, they kind of got away from what they were doing, which was at times a very switch heavy defense last year under Ime Udoka. Granted, that evolved and changed as the year went on, but Marcus Smart's always been able to defend pretty much 1 through 5. He's never shied away from it. So it is cool to see him be able to go back and do that. And especially considering, you're running out with Luke Cornett, You're trying to stop Al Horford from having to switch all the time, getting him in a mismatch because he has slowed down a little bit. And Luke Cornett's definitely not going to be good in a switch scenario on anyone basically. I think it's good to try and use that when you can. I think certain matchups are going to call for it, some might not. And I think fortunately, at least against the Knicks, it was a situation where Mitchell Robinson wasn't in the fold, so you didn't have to worry about one of their dominant centers coming in and just destroying you. So I think in certain matchups it's going to work to have Marcus Smart get switched on there. I mean, hell, I remember him doing it against Paul Millsap in the playoffs, where he just took him completely out of the equation for like the last 5 minutes of a game because they switched him onto him. So it's definitely possible to use in good spurts.
The other thing with Tatum is as well, you can switch in probably 2 through 5. I mean, he could probably pick up a guard too, but I don't want him to have to. Guards are really good at getting guys on their hips, sealing them away. And that kind of makes it interesting to me. So if we look at what positions Tatum's defending, right? So when we look at this defensive matchups, positions defended, it's really kind of fun to look at this. So when we're looking at the actual breakdown here, we're looking at how Tatum's defending different types of guys. So the majority of time, Tatum's guarding opposing power forwards. Then we're looking at small forwards. He's happy to slide down to the small forward, and then he's guarding bigs. And then now and again, you'll see him guarding 2s and 3s. So I'm looking at Basketball Index's data here. It's a little bit more complex than that, but I'm trying to do this in a way that isn't going to be looking at LeBron factors and looking at all of the algorithms that go into generating these data points. And you can find this yourself as well, right? I'm just trying to give you the overview of like, hey, Tatum's defending a bunch of different dudes. He's switching a bunch. More importantly, and we can pull this up on Instats data, he's primarily defending guys that are catch and shoot threats. 16.8% of Tatum's defensive possessions are defending catch and shoot threats. He's limiting them to just about 50% shooting. So he's having a good impact there. Catch and drives, that's the next thing we're asking Tatum to defend. So slashers, whether that be somebody, a non-scoring shooting guard, that's going to have to slash to the rim. Maybe it's just a slashing wing. Tatum's holding them to 0.8 points per 100 possessions. So that's less than a 50% conversion rate, right? So Tatum's doing very well there. Guarding pick and roll ball handlers. Well, wings run a lot of pick and roll these days, probably as much, if not more, than guards. What I'm getting at is this dude is versatile. He's guarding pretty much every position for different points. He's focusing on shooters and slashers with legitimate upside. Rebounds, again, they went up last season for him. They've gone up again a little bit. If we look at his season stats this year, he's averaging 8 boards a game, cleaning the glass. And I don't want to go too much more into stats here, so I'm going to stop. But cleaning the glass has got him averaging stealing the ball 1 out of every 100 possessions. So it's not great. He's not really leading steal stats, but he is grabbing 19% of the available defensive rebounds when he's on the floor. He's in the 91st percentile for that. So, hey, for every 100 shots that opposing teams miss, regardless of who's sharing the court with Tatum, he's putting down 19 of them. He's one of the better rebounding wings in the league.
And I've definitely seen him get more invested on that side of the ball. I think since the playoffs, we sort of saw him lock in defensively. I mean, you had him willingly stepping in to defend guys like Kevin Durant, switching onto Giannis Antetokounmpo. Like, they didn't shy away from those kind of situations. And I think that's just a step in maturity, a step in leadership. And also, if this team is supposed to be, or at least it was under Ime Udoka, defense first and having that strong defense be their identity, you need everybody to buy in, and that starts with your stars. And I think we've seen Tatum start to do that more and more, especially where the team's been struggling defensively. He's been trying to get everyone on that same level back to where they need to be in order to be an elite defense.
Because Tatum's the man, dude. This is what the problem is.
This is Tatum love.
It's just all Tatum right now. He's clearly the best player on the team. He's clearly cracked that top 10 in the league. And I don't agree with who's the best player in the NBA. I've never liked that discussion. I believe that you should be discussing it positionally. Who's the best guard? Who's the best wing? Who's the best big? You know what I mean? Because then you can start to contextualize their play styles more. You can start to be like, hey, well, Tatum's one of the more impactful wings or the impactful forwards or whatever. However, your outlook on basketball leads you to describe player positions or positionless basketball, kind of where they fit. That's kind of what I prefer, right? And that leads us on to something else that we never used to see forwards do a bunch of, unless it was the mailman, Mr. Karl Malone, playmaking. And I'm not going to go stats heavy here because I try to avoid stats in most of my discussions. So I don't want to get sucked into it just because I've got the windows open. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to myself right now. I'm the X's and O's guy, not the numbers guy. I'll end up putting my foot in my mouth. Um, Playmaking's been great. Tatum's obviously got the highest usage rate of anyone on the team. The ball's in his hands more than anybody else's. We saw last season he kind of started to take that jump in being able to read traps and see the floor over those traps and make the right decision early. What we're seeing now is he's preempting them and getting off the ball quicker than the traps are coming to him. Or if you do send to it him, he's just hitting the roll man, or he's taking an escape dribble away, calling for a rescreen and then attacking that way. It's a lot more patience based. I think what we saw the skill development last season, right? We saw him be able to make those passes to read those counters by defense last season. What we're seeing now is he's added the patience to his game to allow that defensive possession to unfold. So then he knows how to attack it, and he's happy to wait for his teammates to relocate, to set the screens. It's just a maturity improvement this year, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and his ability to read situations too, I feel like has gotten better. I think they talked about it a little bit, or at least Udoka did last year. And this goes for Jalen as well. The ability to make quick reads of a situation, not wait for it to get too far to a point where all of a sudden you're in a trap situation and you're forced into an errant pass that turns into a turnover. Like they're starting to have better floor vision overall as a team, but specifically Tatum, and he's finding his teammates. It gets a lot easier when you have guys like Malcolm Brogdon out there. Derek White, his shooting, like we talked about a little bit before, has started to go way through the roof. Starting to cool off a little bit now, but I mean, he had a crucial three in that Bulls game. So we're seeing a lot of these other players that are around them hitting shots, and a lot of that has to go with credit to them for hitting their threes, but also your major playmakers finding you guys in creating looks for you guys that weren't there before. So I think the overall ball movement has been great, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go from here. But I think Tatum definitely deserves his flowers so far, and I want to see how they continue through the next 10, 15 games or how they wrap up the actual calendar year of 2022.
So that's one of the bonuses of having Tatum as a rebounder as well, right? Because he can rip and run. So now you've got this guy that is arguably the best playmaker on your team, arguably has the best processing speed on your team, can rebound, can run the floor, make decisions in real time, fast, rapid decisions, get off the ball, be an off ball scoring threat while whoever is passed to is attacking downhill, relocate. Tatum's just evolution overall to be this rip and run threat as a wing, as an elite scoring threat on all three levels that can hit you from anywhere on the court. We saw that one pass he had against the Knicks where it was basically like a full court touchdown pass. And it was on point, right? Just over the defender, straight into, I can't remember who's that. I think it was Derek White's hands. I might be wrong there. But just that rip and run threat that he brings to you is ridiculous. Now, I want to take this moment just to remind everybody, if you didn't hit subscribe at the start of the show, make sure to do that now. We're making that push, baby. Now, what I want to say now is, now we're wrapping up, I want to know what you think Tatum's biggest improvements are. I want to know whether you think he's MVP caliber. Is he playing at an MVP level right now? I want to know what other numbers can you throw at me? What type of play context can we talk about? Let's get this discussion going in the comment section. So leave some comments. We'll get that discussion going. I'm really curious to see what everybody watching and listening to this believes. So if you're listening on a podcast version, head over to YouTube, get involved in the comment section. If you're watching this on YouTube, first of all, thank you for making it 25 minutes in. Y'all the GOAT. Second of all, make sure to go and hit that comment section. Let us know your thoughts. That's going to be fun in us getting to know you and to building this community. Tim, is there anything else you want to throw in there?
No, thank you for tuning in. For those who have, and yeah, let us know in the comments what kind of content you're looking for as well. We are definitely down and open to break down anything that you're thinking about. We should be talking about. So thank you.
What I will say is a lot of people who are subbed already have come from my Twitter and YouTube. I will not be doing film breakdowns on this channel, until we're monetized. So if you want me to start doing long form film breakdowns and doing some streams where we really look at some of the schemes that Mizuda's putting in place, we can do that once we're monetized. That should be an incentive enough if you're that way inclined. Thank you very much. We'll be back again tomorrow.